Lumix just announced a brand new S9, a smaller, lighter and more compact camera to join the full frame lineup. I think it's a camera that is a home run for a lot of people, including myself, but it does have its own set of quirks that I'll go through in today's video. So what I'm going to do now is just run through some of the specs for you guys so that we know where we're standing with this new camera, and starting where I always start, with the price point. So the S9 will be priced at £1,499, $1,499 or €1,699. It's going to come in green, black, blue and red. It's essentially an S5 II put into a smaller compact body. So it's got the same 24 megapixel sensor, the same PDAF and basically the same specs as well when it comes to video and photo shooting. But it does have time recording limits with video shooting because there's no active calling on this body. And load times are as follows. So in all 4K modes, in the MOV wrapping, if you like, it's 15 minutes. It's 10 minutes in 5.9K and 6K, and then 20 minutes in all the full HD modes. And then you can also do 15 minutes of recording in the brand new MP4 Lite mode, which is a brand new feature for the S9. And essentially, it gives you a data write speed of I think 50 megabits a second. It's a much more compressed version, which is great for sharing instantly to your mobile devices, and we'll get more onto why you might want to do that later on. This camera was definitely designed with the everyday user in mind, designed so that you can essentially share your photos and videos very, very quickly. And what's really cool is that they also announced a brand new app called LUMIX Lab alongside the S9, and the pairing of the two make it so easy to basically share your work on your social channels and stuff without much editing required whatsoever. And that's also by using the real-time LUT function that we've already seen inside the S5 II and the S5 IIX, but they've essentially put it on steroids in the S9 because now you can save up to 39 custom LUTs in camera. Also, the app has a page with loads of creators' LUTs on there that you can also use in this camera. So it basically gives you the freedom to choose any look or style that you want. Lumix have also added a lot of features to their real-time LUT function to make it easier for the user as well, such as things like LUT opacity, which essentially allows you to dial in how intense you want that LUT look to be on your photos or your videos. And now you can also stack two LUTs on top of each other, which is absolutely fantastic because if you're like me and you like to shoot in Vlog for maximum dynamic range, then you can do that. So essentially what I do is I'll be stacking my Rec 09 conversion LUT and then a look LUT on top of that, and I can change the sort of intensity of that look to make sure it doesn't look too overbaked, and I can just go ahead and share that instantly using the Lumix Lab app. So it truly does give a really flexible workflow that's really quick and easy. And then continuing with the theme of being really easy to share your work online, this new MP4 Lite sort of codec package that they've made in the S9 really helps that, because the smaller 50 megabits a second sort of write speed means that it makes sharing those video files really, really quick, you know, when you're sharing it to your smartphone and stuff. And this MP4 Lite has the 4K open gate mode, which is actually 3.8K, but you're still using the full width of the sensor. So if you did want to crop for vertical shooting, horizontal shooting, or any sort of crop that you want to use, it gives you that flexibility, so it's really good. I have to say that one of my favorite features in the brand new S9 is the hybrid zoom function. And that essentially couples a mechanical zoom, so the actual zoom ring, with a electronic zoom. And it does it simultaneously so you don't even notice when it switches. And it's really fantastic to use with the Lumix 28-200 because you get so much reach using this function. And like I said, it's all done completely by itself when you turn that zoom ring. It's really, really cool. And it makes shooting so much more flexible if you are using a zoom lens and just want to get a little bit closer to whatever it is that you're shooting. Of course, the biggest selling point for me, at least with this camera, is the form factor. It's just so much smaller and lighter for those who do want to carry a better camera with them when they go out with their friends and family, or to shoot something that isn't exactly client work, but don't want to bring their big S5 II or S5 IIX. And that sort of lends a question of what lenses are good to use with this camera. Personally, I think that the 1.8 primes will be a fantastic set of lenses to use with the S9. Right now on Emily's camera, I've got the 35mm f1.8, and as you can see, The form factor is really nice, but the lenses that I'd actually like to grab for my S9 are the Sigma I series lenses. So they've got the 24mm f2, the 35, the 45mm f2, and so on. I'll put some images on screen now, but they're much more compact and they have an actual physical aperture ring on the lens. So it means that you can actually assign your top dial to not be changing the aperture, and it basically frees up another sort of function dial for whatever you want to use it for. And as you can see, the image quality from the S9 is absolutely superb. It's literally identical to the S5 II, so you're getting the same fantastic image quality in both photo and video. Of course, the only difference really between the two cameras, aside from the size and form factor, is the recording time limits, because we don't have the fans on the body of this camera. But like I said earlier, it's not really a camera that's been designed for client work, so I can't imagine people using this for interviews and stuff. It's more so for grabbing those quick little clips to put together and then share on social media. And I think it does that very, very well. Another fantastic feature of this camera is the stabilization. I mean, it's just incredible. Again, when I saw this small form factor, I was worried they were going to take away the IBIS, and for me, a Lumix camera without IBIS is literally sacrilege, so I'm happy they did include the fantastic stabilization. And with that new e-stabilization mode set to high, you can get some pretty gimbal-like shots, even though this thing weighs, you know, very, very little. I know historically speaking, you like to have a bigger setup to make your sort of handheld shots feel a little bit more stable and a bit more floaty and not so jittery. But the stabilization inside this camera is so good that you can literally run around without a gimbal whilst walking, whilst even, you know, speed walking if you want, as long as you've got a good ninja walk, and you can get some really stable shots. So it really is a great compact system if you are wanting to shoot without needing any extra equipment. So let's now talk about the physical characteristics of the S9 aside from its very small form factor. So on the top you have your standard PASM dial like we see on most Lumix cameras. We have the red record button, an exposure compensation button, and your standard sort of dial and shutter release. Of course, all the buttons can be configured to whatever you want them to be in the menu, so don't worry if you don't use exposure compensation stuff, you can go ahead and change it. And then going on to the actual back of the camera, you'll see it looks a lot more sort of minimal compared to other Lumix bodies, in the sense that we don't have the joystick anymore and some of the buttons have moved around. So the playback button is now just above the D-pad instead of being on the top left corner like it was on the S5 II and S5 IIX, and I think that's to help with one-handed shooting because it's such a small body. The weight doesn't hurt just to hold it in front of you. You're not putting too much strain on your wrist, so putting it there makes it great for one-handed function. And you also have a LUT button as well, which you can use to sort of toggle through all of those 39 LUTs that you can save inside this camera. I know a lot of people are going to be watching this video and sort of feel a little bit sad about those recording time limits, but if I'm being completely honest, I've been shooting with the S9 for the entirety of my trip here in Japan so far, and I've had zero issues with any of those time limits. Realistically, if you're just shooting stuff for yourself or you're just trying to get nice content to share online, you can do it without needing that 30-minute or unlimited recording time, because we're not recording long takes here. You can just go ahead and get 5-minute takes of everything and you'll be absolutely fine without this camera heating up. So with all the positives that I have to say about this camera out of the way, let's talk about some of the quirks. This camera only has an electronic shutter. There is no mechanical shutter present inside this one. And to start off with, that really did bother me, because if you're shooting anything with artificial lighting, then you may get banding at certain shutter speeds. So please do be aware of that. I have found that to be the case in some of the shots that I've got in Osaka, and I'll leave some images here so you can see what I mean by this electronic shutter issue. And while the synchro scan function is good to sort of alleviate that issue, you to go ahead and sort of reset it each time you change. So it can be quite a cumbersome thing to sort of sort out each time you go ahead and change your settings. Another thing to mention is that this camera doesn't have a headphone jack, so you only have your mic input but no way to monitor your audio. That might be a downside for some people, but if I'm being honest, the sort of person that this is aimed towards wouldn't be using headphones to monitor anyway. If I was vlogging myself, I'd look pretty stupid if I had headphones on as well, so I understand why they left it out. And of course, it's all in the name of keeping this camera as compact as possible. I find the levels on this to be absolutely fine, and it's got the same audio settings as the S5 II, so you can change your gain between standard and low, and you can go all the way down to minus 18 decibels as well, so you can be sure to get, you know, crispy audio without the in-camera preamp ruining it. Of course, I've only had this camera in hand for a few days, so there's a lot more for me to sort of discover about it, and that means that I am planning quite a few more videos that sort of dive deeper into what this camera can and can't do. If you're about to jump on the Lumix train, then this channel has a comprehensive library of information for you to get up to speed with your brand new camera. So if you did want to join the Lumix Express, then you should definitely subscribe. And because Emily told me to, choo choo.